On November 8, due to security update from Airtable, the attachment sharing links will start to expire within 2 hours from the moment you retrieve them. In this video, I will show you how to create sharing links that do not expire, how to use the same sharing link for multiple files within the same attachment field, how to use this sharing link for multiple attachment fields within the same record, as well as how to set a custom expiry date and turn on turn off switch for each of the records. Finally, as a bonus, I'll show you how to create a neat download page for a specific record listing all the files over there. This is a sample Airtable base with records containing attachments that we would like to share with multiple people that we have on this list. And it used to be possible in the past, or the way people used to do it is that you would take the URL of the records here directly from Airtable and share this with other people. Since those records, those URLs will expire from November 8, now I would like to show you how you can use make.com, previously Integromat, to create a URL that will not expire. So the first step will be to create a webhook, and we will select a custom webhook and create a new webhook here. We will call it a file download link. And what we will do, we will copy the address to the clipboard and create a new request to this webhook, and we will call it record ID equals, and now we'll just write test. Okay, so here the webhook already sees that we have made a request and it has determined the structure of the data that we will be requesting. So the next step, we will add Airtable module get a record. Get a record, select a base and table. And now here we will use that record that we have retrieved from the previous step. So now once we click on that URL, we would receive the data about that particular record. Let's test it with one of the records here. So what we will do, we'll create a sample request. So I'm opening the details of the record over here. And here you can see the last part is actually a record ID. So I will make a test over here. And you can see that make has retrieved the details of that particular record. So what we will do right now, we will add another module which will be called webhook response. And what we will do over here, we will do a status called 302, which will be a redirect, and instead of a header, we will move over to advanced settings and select custom header. And this custom header will be location, and as a value we will return here the URL of that particular record. So now I will click here, and since I'm not selecting any value here in between the brackets, because this, as you can see through the brackets, this is an array, it will just return the first element over there. So let's click OK, and let's click save, and let's run this one once. And once I click on this one, it will redirect me to the attachment that I had inside of Airtable. So you can see it has redirected me to the first attachment that I have here in Airtable. It is actually showing me the URL download link from Airtable. The difference will be that in the future, every time you request this webhook, it will go to Integromat and run this scenario again, request a fresh redirect URL, and it will return a URL from your Airtable that will expire within 2 hours, just like any other link that you would get from inside of Airtable. But the difference would be that if you are basically sharing this link here with that record ID, it is going back to Airtable, and it's every time from make.com requesting a fresh URL for those images. But what if you don't want to share this URL here? What if you would like this URL to return file directly? This is also possible, so we will do a second option for that. Let's clone this module here. And before that module, we will actually retrieve the file. So what we will do, we will use HTTP get the file. So now we would request a file. So here, similarly, we will use the thumbnail and we will use the URL of that file to retrieve that URL. Now what we're gonna do, we will not return a redirect, we will return status 200 and we will share data in the body of this response. For the headers, there is a few more things that needs to be customized. So in this case, we will remove the location since it is not a redirect. We will add a new header called content type. And here we will reuse the content type that is being shared from Airtable. So we will reuse the content type over here. And we need to add a second header, which is called content disposition. This is also where we will tell the browser to start downloading the file rather than opening this in the browser, and we'll add the file name. And this is where we are adding the file name. Okay, so let's save this. Now I will temporarily disable that other response so we can save and test it. And you can see that the browser has initiated the download of the file, and you can see that the file has started downloading right here. I'll open this one more time here, and you can see it's starting the download of the file. Now we'll move to the second stage. You can see that we have two different files in here. So there are basically two different attachments. So we would like to share either attachment 1 or attachment 2. So for that, let's work on this module. So let's open the settings and let's click to redetermine data structure again. Here as a request, we will add one more thing. So we will add ampersand and we'll type file ID equals, and let's say number 2. Here it says accepted because it has just redetermined the data structure over here. So now let's click OK. And what will happen now, we are actually getting both of those files here inside of the thumbnail. So you can see number 1 and number 2. What will change is that now inside of this array, we will add the file ID. This will determine whether we are downloading the first file or whether we are downloading the second file. Similar here, we'll add the file ID in the middle, and we will add the file ID over here. The file ID is added. Let's save it and run once, and let's see what happens. And I have just downloaded this file. Let me open this in the browser, and you can see that it has downloaded the second attachment here from the list. If I would change the file ID to 1, you can see that I'm downloading another file and we are back to the original file number 1. Okay, so this is the first step here. Now the question is, you can see that also here in logos, I'm having some other attachments. And those attachments are actually coming from the logos over here. So you can see that I'm having some like common files that are usually being used for common projects for everyone. So here I just attached a couple of those specific files. Right, so you can see here additional images. So let's also specify that inside of our request. So let's take that URL again. Let's add an ampersand and let's say file type equals, in this case we would like to download the thumbnail. Let's click redetermine the data structure. So what we can do right now, let's reuse this part and we will add here a filter saying that if it got refreshed, so we will say file type equals, let's do thumb here, and here let's do logo. Okay, so let's go back over here. Okay, you can see that we have received the file from the first branch following this route over here. By the way, we need to add the file ID over here. Okay, so if we would execute the URL and then we would type logo, it would follow the second route, but there's one more thing. We did not change the arrays over here. So at the moment we are still downloading the thumbnail. So what we need to do, we need to change it to the logo. But you'll see there is a slight issue with a lookup images. These are images directly here. These are images that are brought to you through a lookup field. So to go around this, we will do one little trick. You can see that here it looks like it's a different type of object, but this is not really true. Once you go here to the details of this object, you'll see thumbnail contains ID, URL, and so on. And here inside of logos, it is containing the same information. It just doesn't have some of the make names for it and so on. So underneath you can see that the URL is still called URL, file name it is still file name, and the type it's called type. Here you can see what shows up, this little tooltip, that's basically the actual name in the data object. Okay, so anyway, we can get to this information there, but not the same way as here. How we will get there, we will get in following way. So we select the object 1, and here inside we add the file ID. Right, now we will receive, this way we'll receive that object over there, and from that object we want to get a URL property. You can use the functions that are inside of make here. So here this is the general function, and the function get allows you to get either an item from an array or a property from an object. So here you can see we'll use it as get, and we'll add the name, raw name of the property we want to get from object collection, same name. So let's take get, and the property we want is URL. Let's close it, and we will use it the same way for updating the content type inside of the response. So here it will be type. If you don't remember it, check in the details here in that stage. What should be the name? Here it will be also file name. File name. The spelling is important, so do double check so you don't make spelling mistakes. Okay. So now this branch would return download images from the logos. Let's see whether this works. So here we'll use logo and file ID 2. And you can see that the file has been downloaded. Let's go back. Let's try with file 4. Okay. And we have downloaded another file. Fantastic. Now we'll add one more element to it, which will be a way how to add expiry date and how to turn on and off sharing of particular records. I have already pre-made those fields over here, and you can see there are two fields. So one of them is shared, yes or not, and the second one is expiry date. So as expiry date, we are just using whatever local time, and we are including the time so that we can specify exactly what time we will be using. So that's it. And now let's go over to make. So right after this module, before we go to the sharing part, we will do one more thing. So we will add a response here if this is invalid. So let's add a response, and the response will be expired. And the first step will be check if the link is valid, and we will add two checks to that. So the first one, we need to be sure that the link shared is equal to true. And we will have two cases. So for example, if you do not set any expiry date here, in this case we will just ignore it. So we say that and this means that the expiry date does not exist. So if we do not have expiry date and the sharing is turned on, this route will go through. So let's test it. So I will save it and I will run once. And we got the first file. Okay, so you can see that if the expiry date is not set, the record is valid. So how can we have it work also with expiry date? We'll add OR rule here. So we have another rule here. Here we will say shared and expiry date is later than or equal to now. Here we'll use the time function, and we will use now. Okay, let's save it and run one more time. Yeah, you can see we have gotten the record here. We have gotten the second file. Fine, we have gotten the file here. Okay, one more thing, we need to make sure that this response works only as a fallback route. So if no other check is true, then this response would work. So now let's just double check and let's change this date back to a date from yesterday, and let's request the same file again. All right, expired. And active. And let's also double check that if we turn off the shared, whether we will be able to get this link. And we will also have a response expired. This way you can control which links are being shared and what is the expiry date for those links. And now as a bonus, I'll show you how to create a custom download page for all the attachments and all the links that you have in your project. So this is a page that we would like to show in case there is no parameter specified. So let's go back to the Integromat and let's make a custom response. We will do a response, and this response will be triggered in case there is no file type present. So if none of those conditions are met, this will be a fallback route. And we will say here fallback in the body. Let's just test it out quickly. You can see this is the fallback route. Okay, so what we would like to do, we don't want to return fallback, we actually want to return this whole page over here. So now I will share the link below to something which is called codesandbox, and it is all written in a code, but you don't have to do anything specific other than adjusting the fields over here. So the basic version that you can do is you can select all the information here and you can copy paste it to the webhook. So let's go back, and the webhook response, instead of the fallback, we will just paste everything that we have here. It looks a little bit cryptic, but worry not. Let's save and let's see what response we get. Bam, you have a download file that is visible as a response to your webhook. We will use it in one more way. Here inside there is also a response file. So this is a response that the download link has expired. So actually let's go back to the previous step, and here we'll exchange this to the code that you will find here in the response. So if the file link is expired, so let's make the file link expired, so the sharing has stopped, we will get a response that the link has been expired. And if the link is available to be shared, then we will get the response with the download page. Or otherwise, you can also specify the file type and file ID as in the previous step, but if you don't, then you will get the list with the download files. Okay, now how do we update this page so it really shows the link to the proper files that you need? Okay, let's go back to Integromat make.com, and what we will do here, we need to substitute, and this looks a little bit nasty here, but we need to substitute a couple of things here. So the first thing is the recipient. The recipient is the name of the person from our record. So here we'll use name, and instead of Greg we'll add the name. So let's start with this, save, let's try again. Hello Mike. And you can see that this is the record that we are sending to Mike. And now the next step, let's customize the files that we want to return. What we need to do is that in the next step, you can see there is a header. So here, thumbs. We would like to return the thumbnails. So this is the name of the header. So let's call it thumbnails. You can use any name you want for that. And the next step will be data, will be the data of the files that you would like to return. And this data here, it should be basically a JSON string of the data from Airtable. So I will show you how to do it here inside of Integromat. And this will be fairly straightforward. We'll just do a JSON and use transform to JSON here. And we will transform the thumbnails into a JSON format. Now, when we are here, instead of using here Airtable data, you can replace it with the JSON string. Okay, let's save it. Let's see the download page. And you can see that we already have the thumbnails and all the information that we had from Airtable there. So you can see we already have both files, and this returns the up-to-date links to those particular files. Now I have also added the logo file over there. So if you go back to the response over here, you can see that here inside of the field types, I'm actually having objects like that for each of the rows that I have in my data. So for example, you can add multiple rows if you would have, for example, more attachments and more information. So you can see, just remember you have to add the comma. So just customize it, and here we will really add logos. So to add logos over here, we need to add another transform to JSON. So I'll just clone this, and here we will just use the logos. And here I am replacing the Airtable data with the JSON string from logos. Okay, let's save it. And you can see that here we have all the logos from that particular record, as well as the thumbnails, and here example of another attachments if you would have it. So this is a way how you can create a simple download files if you have multiple files that you would like to share. It doesn't have to be only images. This could be pretty much any type of files that you would like to share from there. And the difference is that every time this webhook is activated, it is pulling the attachment URL freshly from Airtable, so they will be valid for another 2 hours. So the moment when someone is accessing it, they should be able to access all the URL links over here. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I hope this was useful for you guys to share files with your customers or people that are not inside of your table. If you want to use it for hosting the files on the internet, it makes more sense to use S3 or use other systems for hosting. It's not designed to be hosting files on a bigger scale, but it can be helpful for you guys to share this with a customer and, you know, small project and so on. And I'm going to do 2 things in the description of this video. So first of all, I will share you a blueprint of this scenario. So when you go into import blueprint, you'll be able to download all the things, so you can actually start straight away from this spot with all this information over here, so you don't have to go through everything from the scratch. And the second thing, I will also share you the link to this code sandbox. So if you would like to go here, you can attempt to customize it. So you will have the response and you will have the main index here. It's code, but as you can see, it's fairly straightforward, so you can customize some of the things here. It's also using Tailwind CSS. So if you go to tailwindcss.com, it's a very simple way how to change the colors, and it's pretty intuitive and so on. So that could be a great way if you'd like to customize it in another way. So yeah, I hope this was useful for you guys, and please subscribe, and that helps the channel out. Yeah, good luck guys. Thank you.